Right, good evening, everybody. This week we are talking Do Fly. Well, we're talking Do Fly if Gav actually joins us. He's on his way. He will be with us shortly. So there we go. But we've got me, and we've got Dominic Wilcox, author of The Skimming Stone. Just a beautiful little book. I love these little things. Just such a tactile thing. So welcome, Dominic. Thank you for joining us. I'll get Dominic, for those, I know not everyone has got a copy of The Skimming Stone, so I'll get Dominic to explain the story in a little while. It's very pertinent. So we're going to talk Skimming Stone, and we're going to talk Fly. So if he joins us, I'm sure most of you are aware, Gavin Strange, when he wrote Do Fly, he was a senior designer at Aardman Studios. He's now a director and designer at Aardman Studios. He's worked there for over 13 years, and there's lots of stuff in terms of live action channel idents for BBC Two. I love those things on BBC Two. I hope he's going to join us so I can ask him what they all mean. Gav's having internet issues, so he was having car issues. Now he's having internet issues. He'll be here. It'll be fine. So he says he holds everything together with a common thread of energy and fun, and I'm sure that's what he'll bring as soon as he arrives. Dominic Wilcox, he is our first bona fide inventor that we've had on the book club, which is quite a job title as it goes. So Dominic does lots of things. He invented the world's first GPS shoes. He invented a driverless sleeper car that you can see magnificently behind him there, made out of stained glass, which is absolutely wonderful. He spoke at the Do Lectures in 2017 and published the Skimming Stone the year after. At the moment, he's chief inventor at his startup Little Inventors, which is there to inspire young people to get inventing. Dominic, what led you to start Little Inventors? What a wonderful thing.
Yeah, well, it was hello everybody. It was a commission I got by a local council in Sunderland, where I'm originally from, and it was to engage at least 200 people in the local community in creative activity. But actually, I'd had an idea previously, a simple idea of what would happen if we asked children to think up and draw their own invention ideas, and then asked skilled makers and manufacturers to make the most interesting ideas into real things for exhibitions. And so that's what I did, really. Asked 450 children, primary school children who've got that free imagination, to think up and draw their ideas. I did 19 workshops in 2 weeks, collected 600 ideas, and then put a call out to local makers, craftspeople in the area, who then gathered, and we showed a selection to them, and then they chose the ideas that they would make into real prototypes and models. The children then met the makers and discussed their idea in more detail. The makers then made the objects, and we had an exhibition in an empty shop on Sunderland High Street. And I took photographs, put it online, and it went viral. And we started to get emails from around the world for people who wanted to do the same thing. It went on CNN and Discovery Channel. And so it was one of those quite simple ideas, hopefully done well, and then communicated, and then people came to it. So we decided in 2016 to start Little Inventors as an ongoing organization, and now we inspire children around the world, really, China and Canada and America and all different places.
And it's taking you to speaking at the UN about it.
Yeah, I've been there 3 times now. I was recently there for the Human Rights Council, where we did a Little Inventors Challenge, actually, and we had an exhibition. It was on the environmental inventions, and within the area where all of the movers and shakers sort of sit informally in little circles of like having a coffee, we had a whole wall of these children's ideas made real. So hopefully we've inspired future politicians and decision makers with some sometimes bonkers ideas, but sometimes useful. Try to loosen up their imaginations a little bit.
Well, hopefully tonight we're going to try and loosen up everyone's imaginations in the audience as well. So in the spirit of Little Inventors, we wanted you to come up with your idea or your invention for how you would surround yourself with positivity. We're going to talk about creativity and bravery and positivity through the rest of the hour. But we want your wackiest ideas for surrounding yourself with positivity. Now, you can put it in the chat, or better still, if you can draw a picture, we'll do like a gallery bit at the end and you can hold up your picture. Miranda's wincing. She's like, no, don't get people to draw pictures. You don't have to draw pictures, but we'd love to hear, how are you going to surround, what's the worst idea you've got for surrounding yourself with positivity? Pop it in the chat or draw a picture and we'll share them at the end. Gav, Dominic, what was your favorite of the kids' ideas that they came up with?
Well, there's been many ones. I did one where there was a young boy and he invented a worry shredder. And the idea was you would write down your worries, put it in this shredding machine, and then it would give you a chocolate as a reward and an uplifting, positive message. And then so we actually made it real. We copied his drawing, which was like a box with a face on the front. And then we took it into his classroom in the primary school. And we had all of the children lining up with a sheet of paper, wrote down their worries to shred their worries and get a chocolate. And that was great. We took a video. It was a nice video to see. We had a little boy who he really loved Gardener's World, and Monty Don is his hero, and he invented a train. It's sort of like a plant pot on a train track, model train track, that would move out into the sun or into the shade, depending on what was the best time for that. And he wrote a letter to Monty Don about it, who then invited him, and the cameras visited his garden, and they did a 7-minute piece on him taking them around his garden, talking about plants because he loved gardening, and then showed his invention. And so, and he wants to be a television presenter. So he's an amazing young boy, which there are. It's when we talk about exams and tests and finding out who's the best in the class, actually asking them to come up with ideas, and you can find out the cleverest ones without doing any tests. The communication of ideas, drawing, but also speaking about your idea, the idea itself, how does it help? It's a much more interesting way of unearthing, talent and potential and cleverness, and without exams.
Absolutely, and I mean, what a great thing for a child to be able to do, to just come up with this idea, see it come to life, and then see grown-ups be excited about it. I guess that's the power of creativity when it comes to life in front of you, isn't it, really?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, we have exhibitions with all of the children's ideas made real and the drawings on the wall, and we quite often, the parents who visit, start coming up with their own invention ideas because they're inspired by the children's ideas, and because they're quite fun, it makes people relax. If you relax, a more chance of being creative. And so it's sort of, they inspire us and so on, like this, a circle. And there's Gav there.
And here is Gav, or he was there, he's disappeared. We'll bring him in a minute. So I mean, that's amazing, isn't it? That you do this thing for kids and give them the chance to be creative, and then that sucks their parents in as well. I think it speaks to that idea that there was a time when we were all creative, and then as we go through our lives, for some reason we lose it. Why do we do that? Have you got any ideas why that might be? Why we might lose?
Well, my theory about creativity is that it's not about becoming more creative. You know, people who want to be more creative. I wish I had more ideas. I wish I was more creative. It's not really about that. It's what I believe is that we've all got a natural creativity within us, but as we've grown older, we start to hide it, or it gets hidden by things like lack of self-confidence, or being worried what other people will think, wanting to be sensible, and all of these things are like layers that start to hide our natural creativity. So actually, it's not about becoming more creative. It's really, the aim should be about releasing and revealing your natural creativity. So I don't actually think children are more creative than adults. I think they just have less things covering over their creative creations, creativity.
Less filters, I guess.
Yeah.
Hello, Gav. Before you say hello, you need to take yourself off mute. There we go. Hello.
Oh, sorry, what a bloody palaver. It's a bloody palaver, let me tell you. I'm normally on time and everything with no internet issues, and I am none of those things. So apologies, everyone.
Don't worry, Gav. You've arrived. Well, we're talking about what creativity is. So, I mean, it's fairly timely. I think you've probably got a few thoughts on that. So Dominic, we were talking about how when he puts his exhibitions on, the kids come along and they show their parents the things that they've been doing, and then that sucks the parents in, and how over time we for some reason when we turn into adults we lose that creative urge. Gav, you strike me as someone who's never quite turned into an adult. Is that fair to say?
I mean, I still dress like a 14-year-old, and I live in a bedroom I wish I had when I was a child. So yeah, it's safe to say I've never progressed past any emotional maturity past my teenage years. No, I think I really love the thrill of creativity, and I really love that fuzzy, confusing feeling you get when you have an idea, or you think, oh, that'd be fun, or that'd be good, or wouldn't that be nice to see in the world? And I felt that when I first understood what creativity was, and I feel that now more than ever, because I realize how fortunate I am to work in an industry that allows that, and I get paid to do that, but in how kind of happy it makes me, and how happy it can make other people. So I think I've never felt like I've needed to change feeling young and feeling youthful, because it's got me this far. I've got a dream job that I never thought I could ever have, and I've been able to work with some amazing people and work on some amazing things, and now seeing it in my kids and seeing their attachments to creativity is just kind of cemented. Well, no, I'm very happy with how things are going. I'm very content, and that's not to say that you shouldn't always change the way you do things and the way you look at things, because that's how you grow. But I've been lucky enough that I think I've had those challenges along the way, just as your life changes anyway. To stay creative, in the area of my life that I'm in now with my kids at the age they are, I've had to change my scenario and the way I look at things, and the way the way I wrote about things, how I did things in the book is not true now, because it's evolved into something else, and it will change again. It will change again when my second child is at school, and my wife's pattern of creativity changes, and my pattern of creativity changes. So that's another part of the thrill, isn't it? It's how do you respond to it? Because ultimately, your creative satisfaction is only down to you. I think that was the biggest realization I had in my early 20s, that I was always expecting my job to make me fully creatively satisfied, and until I realized it's absolutely not their responsibility. It's a thrill if it is, and that's great if what you're doing during the day, whether it's school or university or whatever it is you may do, but if that isn't anyone else's responsibility to make sure you are 100% satisfied. And so I sort of just decided there and then, okay, well, that's up to me. If I'm 10% missing, then I'll go and seek out that 10%, or 50 or 60 or 70 or whatever it is may be. So I feel like I understand my own rhythms now for being creatively satisfied and what I need to do to make myself happy, really.
And so we've talked about creativity there as if we know what it is. What does it mean to both of you? Do you think you've got a handle on what creativity? I loved what you said there, Gav. You said that'd be fun, and that sounds like quite a good element of it. But beyond that, have either of you got thoughts on what creativity is?
Wow, what a question.
The thing is, creativity is such a broad subject that it's almost like I don't like talking about it. But I think one area of creativity I like is what I call creative thinking, which in my work is coming up with ideas in my sketchbook, coming up with ideas that make people that are surprising or delightful or thought-provoking. So ideas, and then I come up with those ideas, and then I think, how can I best communicate those ideas visually? So in creative thinking, I think it's like making connections between the things that the knowledge, the observations, the experiences that are floating around in our head in new and surprising ways. I think creativity is very much about making connections, unexpected connections. And when we see something, even when you hear a joke, someone tells a joke, that is creativity, because it's connecting two unconnected things together, and you go, haha. And a lot of creativity is like that. It's about making surprising connections. What do you think, Gav?
I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, excuse me, I think I get to think about this in two different ways, both in my day job and in my own time. And I think in my day job, it's sort of creativity seeps into what everyone is aiming to do. You know, I work in a big team of people, whether I'm working on either designing or directing a film or a series or a game or whatever it may be. You know, every stage of production, you're making sure you're being the most creative. So the idea, whether it's the words that you write or the gag that you perform or the animation that you do, you know, you want it to be as creatively excellent as possible. So there's sort of like this aspect of commercial creativity of sort of creativity equaling a kind of a benchmark to hit, really, actually. So it's sort of like you want it to be creatively excellent. So I've kind of got that focus during the daytime, which I really enjoy. You know, there's something to measure against there. You've got to, you know, be as excellent as possible. Whereas in my own time, where I'm just doing whatever it is that I choose to make myself creatively satisfied with, there are no rules, so the benchmarks are different, and it is about just making myself laugh or making myself feel happy that I've tried it. So even just in my experience, there's two very different ways to sort of experience creativity. But I think, as Dominic says, it's that connection, and whether it's a connection to yourself, you know, because what you're doing sort of truly makes you happy, or to other people, or yeah, it's such a blobby sort of vaporware of what it could mean. It's quite hard to pin it down. It's also why there's no easy solution, and that's why it's incredibly hard to stay 100% creatively on point all the time, because it's not black and white, it's not binary. It means something different to everyone, but ultimately I think you can recognize when you've played, been, watched, experienced something creative, because it just has heart and soul and warmth and human characteristics at its heart. This is why obviously there's so much conversation around AI at the moment, and AI art and stuff. Yes, it could take a bunch of prompts, you give it, and it can create something that is, you could argue, it's visually spectacular, but it's void of a voice, and it's void of soul, and it's void of imperfections, and choices and bad choices and, and history and drama and all of that stuff. You know, you get quite philosophical quite quickly, I think, thinking about creativity, and that's part of its appeal, I think. No.
Is that AI space an area that you're kind of being drawn into at all, Dominic, or do you push back against it?
There's this thing, was it chat
GDP, I think.
GDP. It's on Twitter. If you're on Twitter, you see it, and you can type in anything like write a joke that involves a fish, a dog, and a hammer, and it will write a joke, and it could be slightly funny. It has a good go at it. It's quite impressive. Or some people have wrote whole business plans. Create me a business and write the business plan and the various different methods of being successful, and it'll come up with something that's pretty not bad. And I actually tweeted, I haven't tweeted for a long time, but I am interested in this idea of what is creativity, and can you program it into a computer to spit it out? It's interesting. I'm not that intimidated by it, because in some ways you could say, well, at the end of the day, if it's a good idea, if it's an idea that helps humanity, I don't really care who's come up with it. If you can get a computer to come up with ideas to solve problems, that's good. I think a lot of people I've heard say that it's a good way of just sort of like kickstarting ideas, getting things flowing. I think that is one of the challenges of creativity, that blank page that we all have. And like, how do you start? Well, you could type in a sort of like general question of, here's the challenge, here's the brief. It might spit back some images, which might get you thinking. And so I think that's going to be useful for creativity. But the tweet I was talking about was that was something like artificial intelligence is a bit like laminate wood flooring, in that, it's good. It looks like the real thing. And for many people, it will be good enough. It'll be good enough, and they will buy into it. So AI creative stuff will be very popular. But for other people, they like real wood flooring. And there's going to be this difference that actually it could be quite common. I think it will be. But some people will still like the original article as all of the things that Gav has just described as the reasons why human. But the AIs are coming, and they'll mimic the quirks and the faults, and it'll be more and more difficult to distinguish. So, yeah, it's very interesting. But I wouldn't be afraid of it if ultimately the joke it comes up with is hilarious, that we all laugh at, or that you know what I mean. It's yeah, it's going to be interesting. Are we all going to be out of jobs? I don't think so, but it might make us all better.
That's such a good analogy. It is the laminate floor and a bit of lino. Yeah, I think I am threatened by it because I'm incredibly insecure about the quality of my own work. So funny enough, I'm really into technology, and I really like priding myself on giving things a go and just having a play, and I never really want or need to be any good at them, but I just kind of enjoy having a little go. But this is the first thing that's really kind of stopped me in my tracks, and especially I think it's the AI image generation. But I've got quite a few friends who are using it as reference points, as jumping off points for them to develop their own work, and they're kind of like training it on their own work, so it's just giving them compositions based on their own stuff. But the problem, and again, it's exactly the laminate floor thing, is because it's cheap and it's quick and it's out there and it's becoming popular, is people kind of crediting themselves as artists when it's nicked, thousands of other people. That is not an original creation. That is mimicking other things. I mean, we could go down the rabbit hole of this conversation, but we're living in an interesting time for sure. But as our idea generation, it could be like a really healthy companion for blank page syndrome, couldn't it? It could be a kickstart thing, as long as it then doesn't just become sentient and self-aware and start World War III. But I'm sure it'll be fine.
But I love the idea of using it as a prompt to get over the blank page, because I think I guess we started out by talking about adults who've forgotten how to be creative, and I wanted to ask you both a little about how can we find our way back into finding our creative voice and being more creative in our daily lives, in our daily work, as well as, it's not necessarily out there painting landscapes. It's melding creativity in. What are your other suggestions for doing that, for reactivating that creativity in our lives?
Well, you go, Dominic, you go.
No, I think for me, being creative is a proactive activity. I could go. I lived in Japan for a year, taught English, never had a creative thought. Even though everybody would say, well, Japan, amazing. It looks a bit like Gav's studio, but yeah, I didn't have a creative thought. I was teaching English. I was a bit stressed. I had a bit of culture shock. I was like on the defense, like survival mode. And also, I was teaching English. This is before I sort of found my creative voice a bit. But I'd had gone to university, Edinburgh College of Art, so I was in that. And I had no audience. I think in a way, having an audience, like someone to share your work with, is nice. It's a sort of encourager. It wasn't until after that I started a blog and got some comments, and that made me think, oh, I've got an audience. So I didn't have that. And so I have experienced, this not being creative thing. And that tells me that it is a proactive thing. And, Picasso said something like, was it inspiration finds you working? I think, and I think Gav mentions it in his book, but just about at the end, it's sort of like, you have to do it, you have to sit down and get it done. But aside from that, I'll give you an example, like this car behind me. I was in Durham Cathedral with my parents, just having a walk around. And so this is the way I can think as a creative person. I'm always on the lookout for some idea, something. So even when I'm out in the church, in the cathedral looking around, so I look at the stained glass windows and I think, oh, they're amazing, aren't they? And I do this in museums as well. Oh, that's an amazing object. Anyway, looked at the stained glass windows, amazing. And I was thinking, so my instinct is, how can I take that in positive, but do something new and fresh that I haven't seen before? So I was thinking in the cathedral, why do you not see it so much in contemporary design, stained glass, and it's always flat? Could you do something in 3 dimensions? So that was a thought, and my mind was sort of whirring while I'm walking around, thinking that through, even though I had no idea what to do with that. And then a year and a half later, I got a commission to design a transport, a mobility for the future. And then it sort of all came together, where I had that sort of part of an idea of a 3-dimensional shape. And I thought, what about a driverless cars of the future? And pushing the idea of, if driverless cars were super safe and the cars are observing each other and the roads are observing each other, then we could make it in any material, such as glass. And then I thought back to my observation in the Durham Cathedral. Why don't I make a stained glass driverless sleeper car of the future and just push it to the limit? So what I'm saying is, it's good to sort of like be proactive in having a third creative eye switched on in your everyday life as much as possible. Now, mine, it continually switches off as I keep forgetting, but it's, at least I know to push that it is useful to switch it on and to be looking. And I think that's what creative people do. They want to make the world more interesting than it is. It's the desire to make the things that are around you more interesting, more surprising, funny, and whatever turns you, what makes you happy. And that's what it is. So it's an ongoing process.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's ever ongoing, isn't it? And what you said there about audience, I think that's totally true. It's accountability, isn't it? And I often like to, if I have an idea or think, oh, I'd really like to do that, I try and make a point of telling someone, telling a friend, or announcing it, or because as soon as you've told the universe and then you've told a loved one, they're kind of expecting it. You know, it's kind of no good being just in your locked up in your brain, because I mean there's a million different reasons why you shouldn't just keep it locked up in your brain, but you know, just to try and get it out and begin, and everyone's, you don't want to be that person, and everyone has one in their lives where they'll see something on TV or in print or whatever it is and they'll go, oh, I could have done that. Yeah, but you didn't, did you, dickhead? So shut up. You know, there's somewhat, people are always so quick to, oh, I could have done that. Yeah, but you didn't. The difference is you didn't do it. And no matter what you think of the thing that you're commenting on, you didn't do it. And really, it, you know, the world belongs to the doers, and you've got to try, and you've got to be vulnerable, I guess, and put yourself out there, but also by, you know, finding your friends and your loved ones that you share these ideas with, they're going to give you support and advice and help, and even if they have absolutely zero clue what it is that you're up to, you know, sometimes you need that as well. I think and it didn't take me it took me a very long time to really realize how important a supportive partner was. Me and my wife Jane have been married since 2015, and we met a few years before that, and she's a fellow creative and just understands why creativity, why are you still talking about that idea, why are you obsessive about that person or that thing, why do you want to get your laptop out again at 9 o'clock at night when you've been at work all day, why, you know, just the whys, the sort of inexplicable whys as to why you would want to pursue something. So I think having that supportive, whether it's a partner, whether it's family, loved ones, total strangers on the internet, whatever it is, you know, I think surrounding yourself with those people shouldn't ever really be underestimated, because you may not realize it at the time, but that sort of positive reinforcement can really, you know, make or break you pursuing something, trying something, finishing something, which is a big thing. But then on the sort of total flip side to this, of which there's, you know, everything, I think I've just found creativity is a contradiction all the time, is you've got to do it in bite-sized chunks. You've got to make it achievable to yourself. And I talk about this in the book, and I talk about it a lot in talks as well. You've really just got to listen to your own rhythms and understand you might just be able to do 20 minutes a week, and that's okay. And that's enough. And I mean, it's a bloody miracle we can get from the beginning of the day to the end of the day at the minute, with the just constant onslaught of terror in every single facet. You know, just living on this planet, knowing that the sun's halfway through its eventual life and it's going to die and consume everything we've ever known or loved, and everything is therefore futile. It's so oppressive. So to have creative thoughts and to stay positive and stay motivated is a task. It's proactive, like Dominic says. You have to work at it. So I think it's this duality of knowing you got to put the work in, you got to put the time, but make it on your rules and make it that fits around you. But you got to stay motivated and want to do it, but also be kind to yourself as well. It's this constant like funny dance that you do with yourself, and again, that's what makes it interesting, and that's what makes it better, as you learn your own rhythms and you learn how you work, and you know, all of that. So it's quite this psychological warfare within yourself, and but that means once you get to the end of it and you've got something, you go, and you should, I absolutely believe you should absolutely be proud of everything you make, whether it's a tiny thing or a massive thing. You made something from nothing in a universe that is cold and unforgiving and wants to destroy you. You should be stoked that you've made something, and flipping good on you, and celebrate yourself with love and positivity. And
I love that response to a cold and unforgiving universe. And it's not a description of creativity I expect we get to. How is that? That's amazing. I mean, so I'm still waiting for folk to come up with their ideas and inventions for ways to surround themselves with positivity. The worst way to surround yourself with positivity. So don't forget, and we'll be doing a Q&A at the end. So don't just sit on your questions. If you've got questions you want to ask, do throw them into the chat. We'll pitch them to the guys at the end. So there'll be like 10 minutes for that at the end. But I mean, so genuinely, how do you both find that energy? Because I'm fascinated to hear that Dominic spent a year in Japan and didn't have a single creative thought. Wow, we can learn so much from. We can, you know. We always tell the stories about the things that worked well. Oh, I had this wonderful idea and it flowed like this, and it was magical. And we never hear about, well, I had this dearth, and what wasn't there that was stimulating us. So where do you both go to get the energy and the ideas from?
I think for me, it's kind of almost a product of how I got into a creative career in the first place, and we talked about this last night, didn't we? Between us all, I feel so fortunate that I got to get into the creative industries, because I didn't come from a place of particular skill or talent. You know, everything that I've managed to do in my very, 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 very fortunate creative career is kind of, I've always surprised myself. You know, I never really expected much of myself in any way, and that's not in a pity party way. That's just, I was an incredibly mediocre, average human. You know, that I was okay at stuff, never great, never bad, not even bad enough to really be remarkably bad, just totally nondescript. You know, just totally blank, like a man's thigh, just nothing of interest. And it was only as I sort of got out of my comfort zone and thought, well, no one's expecting anything of me, mate. I'm just going to try something. And it was that I sort of celebrated myself. I was so stoked that I did make something that oh, okay, you can do things that defy even your own expectations. And it kind of became this self-fulfilling cycle. It's almost like nuclear fusion, in the fact that once you start this chain reaction, and that chain reaction requires an incredible amount of energy to start it. Once it has begun, that's it. It keeps going and going. And I think I've always just tried to tune in, personally, just try to tune into being proud of when I've made something. But also, you know, it's not that I know it's particularly great. Obviously, you know, everything I strive for in my professional career, I absolutely strive for it to be great. Of course, I work for an amazing place that I'm very proud to be a part of. But in my own time, in my passion projects, I would love them to be great, but I don't expect them to be. They're ways to learn and to grow and to develop, whether it's new technologies or a new style or whatever it might be. So I'm kind of trying to use every and any opportunity to sort of keep that fire burning, really. And I think for me, it's making the work and then trying to finish it in whatever state it is. You know, even if I know this is an absolute disaster and this is not how I imagined, you know, just try and sort of, you know, draw a line under it. Sometimes that is literally, no, I know I this has not worked out and I need to draw a line in it so I can get on to the next thing. I think I'm always just trying to stay as motivated as possible, but also, again, this whole duality thing, recognizing when that's not true. So in the past few months, I've really only been focusing on one or two things in my own personal time. And so I've been quite slow in other things, and my kids' sleep patterns have been all over the shop, and I would have really worried about that a few years ago. And I'm not creative, so who am I? But I've kind of, I know I need to take a step back and have that bigger picture of this is a relatively small window within the timeline of my life. And even though it feels like, you know, the previous year I made 12 things in my own time and I've only made 3, you know, in the last 12, that doesn't matter. That matters to no one but me. And I need to make sure I'm being kind to myself, because then otherwise you twist yourself up in knots, don't you? And you then spend your precious little time you do have to be creative in analyzing and criticizing yourself. Basically, Tim, I'm not very clever, and so I don't really think about stuff too much. I go, oh, okay, on to the next one, and that's generally make something neon pink. Bish bash bosh, off you go. So yeah, I'm a simpleton and I don't know how to do anything else. Dominic, how about you?
I'm trying to remember the question, but
So right.
what I want to say is just on this subject of you know, there's the artist and say designer. So a designer will get a brief, and an artist will have to come up with their own reasons for doing things.
Mhm.
And there's a big psychological difference there.
Yeah.
I really do like getting a brief or a challenge where there's some limitations on it. You need to get from there to there and do that in your creative way, Dominic. Some sort of limits really helps spur the creativity. Now, I've never really had a job. Now, I did work in a bookshop for 6 months, Foyle's bookshop in London about 25 years ago or something. But I've never really had a job. And so I've had this challenge of creativity. Motivation is like a roller coaster for me, for all of the different reasons. Having an audience, it might be a motivation, or someone's interested, so you have a creative conversation with them in some way. Getting briefs, I started to get approached by brands like Kellogg's who would say, come up with 7 inventions to make breakfast more fun or interesting for children. So that's a nice little brief. And then I can just it's got a freedom, but it's got a focus, breakfast, fun inventions. And that I can get in my sketchbook, and I'd come up with 20 inventions, send them off. They'll give a bit of feedback. I'll choose the one. We'll come to an agreement which ones I'm doing, develop them. So but at the same time, sometimes I occasionally would have come up with ideas myself, but I really do like a brief. I got into a bit of a rut once. I had this blog Variations on Normal, and was doing my invention, sort of funny, thought-provoking, hopefully, invention drawings. And then I was doing them, and I thought, I haven't actually made anything with my hands for a while. And I was getting in a bit of a creative rut, losing a bit of motivation. And so I sort of announced publicly on, the social media, that I'm going to make a creative thing every day for 30 days in a row, and photograph it or video it and put it on the blog. So this was like a self-set challenge. That was quite difficult. Well, it was a bit of a challenge, I had to keep up. Once you've said it, you have to do it. And so every morning I was waking up at 5 a.m, thinking, what am I going to do today? Have the idea, then go out onto the pound shops. I limited myself to £10 a day was the limit. Make something, photograph it or video it, put it on my blog, and then start again the next day for 30 days in a row. After about day 20, I was getting really hungry because I'd realized I hadn't really had much time to eat anything. So I started to make things out of food. I bought packets of crisps. I was literally walking in Sainsbury's, looking at the packets of crisps, thinking, what creative thing could I do out of these crisps? And bought loads of crisps. But this was an example of, and actually out of that very quick, intense project, it did a couple of things. One is it stopped my procrastination of overthinking, because I had a deadline each day. So I made decisions quicker. And a lot of the problem and challenges with being creative, I think, is deciding what idea is good enough to go forward. And if you have a sort of, you can self-impose yourself a deadline, right? Today, on Saturday, I'm going to think of, create and finish a thing. And if you keep doing that, it's almost guaranteed that you will stumble across something that you actually think, actually, that's quite a good idea, or that worked well. That gives me an idea for a longer project. And that's exactly what happened. I come up with, on day, 21, I was in 4D model shop. I basically look at all of the stuff in the model shop, thinking, what could I do? I could stick that onto that and join that onto that. And I thought, oh, what would happen if you put a blob of clay on the second hands of a watch? And would it work? So I bought a £3 watch, smashed the glass, and put a little clay on the top, and the second hand kept on going. And I thought, all right, so I could put anything on that second hand. So then I had an idea for put in little tiny models, you know, the sort of little architectural figures, and customize them to have little stories on the hands of a watch. So I put one was like a little tiny chair on the minute hand, and a little man in the sitting position on the second hand, and he was going around and around once a minute, sitting down for 1 second. And there was a one unrequited handshake of a businessman standing with his arms folded, and the other man with his hands out to shake hands, and he was going past. And that all came from this sort of like self-imposed pressure of deadlines. And that was a good example. That's my best example of how to get out of a rut. And it sort of worked. But it was very, I'd never do it again. Not to that level of intense, because, you know, it was quite intense. But it did help me get out of this procrastination that I'm obsessed with, indecision.
I've seen Dominic's watch project, and that's why I was chuckling to myself, because when you see it, it's so good. I mean, Dominic spoke in Berlin a few months ago, late last year, and obviously I've seen you talk a few times as well, and you always get such a awesome reaction from people when you share those projects, because people just, it's so fun and it's charming, and but it's exactly that you were saying about creativity. And I think parameters are a huge factor, because they just make you make decisions. If someone gives you 2 weeks, it will take 2 weeks. If they give you 2 days, it will take 2 days. Time is always so stretchy. So if you can actually at least give yourself some limitations in whatever form, then it definitely helps make a decision. And like you say, who knows what's going to sprout out of it. And that's another part of the joy, isn't it?
Yeah. I wanted to ask Dominic about the other project of yours, which became the book. I wanted to ask if you could share the story of the skimming stones, and how you came up with that, and how it became to be the book.
Yeah, I wanted to do something on the idea of what is valuable. Obviously, there's material things to have a value, money and such like, expensive objects. But what is really valuable, things like time is valuable, and also anticipation for something. That excitement of anticipation can be sometimes better than the actual thing. And so I collected skimming stones on the beach, and then I took home about 10 that I thought were really good ones that would skim well. And I took them home, and I gold leafed the stones, and then made little leather pouches for a belt that you could, and the pouches were in the shape of each of the stones, because they're all a little bit different shapes. And just this idea of you carrying around this golden skimming stone, which is actually a normal stone, but but made luxurious through design in a way, and making it special. And so I sort of told the story. I was at the Do lectures. I stand on stage and tell the story of a guy who's carried around his stone for 34 years, 2 weeks, 1 day, and then is and then there's a moment of, does he throw it or not? And in many ways it's a story. It's the story about those things that a lot of us carry around with us, the things that we thought we should do, we could do, we'd love to do, but we never quite do them because of various reasons, and we hold them. And it's a sort of, it's a brave act to let go and to go for it. And many people, I think, go through the full life and never really do it. And that I'm sort of talking to myself, because I'm a person that can have very low self-belief, self-confidence. And so I push myself into situations because I know they're good to do. And so I've done that a lot in my life. I suppose the book comes from that, because basically I told that little story, and then I was asked, would I be interested in turning that into a book, and so that was great. And so yes, that's what it's about.
It's just such a, I mean, it's everything that you've been talking about this evening. Actually, it's just this amazing connection between, complete polar opposites of this tiny thing that you find on a beach becoming a luxury object that you keep forever and never want to let go. I think it's wonderful. But thank you for sharing that that vulnerability of the difficulty of getting out there and putting your head above the parapet and saying, I made this. And it's, to look in at someone who's done some amazing things like you have, and yet still hear that there's that nagging doubt of insecurity. It's so powerful. Because I think we all feel that way. So it's important to hear that people you look up to feel that way as well. How do you get past that then? Is it just a case of being proud of the things that you do, like Gav says, and surrounding yourself with that positivity? Is it, or are there other ways that we can find the bravery to do the things that we want to do?
I don't know. It's a challenge. I think each person has their own personality and their own history and their own, people around them. And I think it's about being happy, as Gav, would say, to create a situation in your life that brings you happiness. And there are many things we can't control in the world. If you get watching the news and all of that, you can't control, but you can control the things around you in terms of creating things, bringing something good into this world is a contribution for yourself, to make yourself happy and to share with other people. I think Gav mentions in his book, bringing a smile to other people's faces is a valuable contribution. And so, yes, so I don't know the answer to the question, but there is a great value for being creative, and that's the reason for doing it. Yeah.
Gav,
how do you find the bravery to keep putting yourself out there?
I think that's it. I think, like Dominic says, everyone's got their own routine, their own rhythm, their own neuroses, their own worries, and so there's no one template. That's why there isn't just a buy this course online and you will unlock the secrets to creativity, because it is so modeled up with who you are, where you're at in your life. It's ever changing, and that's why I think it's really nice to look at small steps and to keeping it achievable. I think it's quite easy in times to have these big grand visions, but to execute them is really hard. And then as soon as it becomes difficult, you think, I'm not gonna try. Something I talk about a lot in my talks is I like to be an idealistic realist or a realistic idealist, and I chop and change depending on the situation. And
hang on. What, an idealistic realist or a realistic idealist?
Yes. And it totally depends on the situation. If you just need to sort of not be constricted by the realities of life, and you can just let yourself dream and imagine and kind of just be away with yourself. But then when you want that to be real, you have to be a realist and you have to work within parameters to make that happen. I found for me, it's just a way that I can be quite fluid and sort of like responsive to the world around me, whatever that is, whether that's I'm absolutely knackered because my little one got up 3 times in the night like she did last night, and so I've got to, I have to be realistic as to how much I will be able to get done tonight. Once I put the kids to bed after this, what time will it be and what can I get done? But at the same time, I kind of don't want to always feel like I'm constraining myself based on those parameters, because quite quickly you can feel like, oh God, well, what is the bloody point then? I only get 20 minutes this night, or 10 minutes, or an hour, and it kind of chips away at you. So you kind of also need to have in parallel that youthful, childlike naivety and dream of things that you want to do, and let yourself daydream and let yourself imagine what it could be like, because that's lovely, and that's like a pleasure that no one else can take away from you ever. That's your own mind, and that's your own ideas. And I think the thing that I always try and tell myself when I think about this a lot. I'm 15 years into my career at Aardman. I've been working since I was like a creative since I was 18, because I didn't do the uni route, and I'm 41 this year. So I've had a good solid 20 years in the industry, and 15 years at Aardman, which I adore. I'm surrounded by people who are doing things that I can only dream of doing. I can only dream of directing a feature film. I can only dream of helming and being a showrunner on a series, or writing this thing that connects with people. I'm lucky enough to be in the gravitational orbit of these people who have done things that I dream to do, and I love dreaming about it. But then I also like to think about the very real prospect of, well, that thing that that thing that you covet, whatever it may be, someone has to do it. So why can't it be you? Like, someone will do it. A human will do it. Why are you not in the running? You absolutely can be. And I know you then, that's the kind of like very idealistic version, because of course you need all the billions of things, but don't kind of don't rain on your own parade too quickly. Kind of use that. And like I say, it's this constant push, pull, back, forth, black and white. You're a dreamer and you're silly. But you kind of need that to pull you forwards for a little bit, and then figure out how you're going to do it, and then use your enthusiasm and your delight and your joy and your dream, dreamy ideas to think of something else. And why not? Life is already quite difficult enough, and for many people in a myriad of ways. So why would you deny yourself a little bit of joy and a little bit of dreaming and a little bit
Absolutely.
of what ifs?
I love that. There's almost you've almost set up a creative tension there between the dreaming and the doing, and it reminds me of where Dominic started by talking about creativity as connections. You've got two things that sort of push and pull on each other. We've talked about finding the time to do stuff. We've talked about surrounding ourselves with positivity and support from people. We've talked about the importance of getting our work out there. We've talked about so much in practical terms about how we can fold creativity into our lives. It's been absolutely fascinating. I wondered if there was any one thing that you wanted to do that you'd not had the chance to do. If either of you got those crazy dreams, you're like, I think I've got to get it. And don't worry, we won't tell anyone. You're not putting it out into the world. It can just remain. We'll just keep it close amongst us. But is there a big thing that you think, actually, I'd really like to do that? Because I'd quite like to project onto the moon, for example. That would be a brilliant thing, to be able to do a projection on the moon. You'd be like, yeah, that's amazing. Might never happen, but the back of my mind, there's this idea.
It might. You never know. I think for me, I would love to direct an animated feature film. I would love to make something that could connect with audiences and is in a format that I would just love to make something that would delight people in that format. And lucky enough for me, I feel like I am in the gravitational orbit of possibility. That would be a absolute huge lifelong dream. I don't think it'll ever happen, but I love dreaming about it. I love seeing other people doing. I love thinking maybe one day, but just dreaming is enough, and that makes me happy in itself. So that's me. Dominic, how about you?
No, nothing really. I have literally no ambition. I never have. I just like coming up with a nice idea that makes me laugh. And then it's nice to share it to other people. They seem to like it. But yeah, and I also think, I mean, a lot of my ideas are small, I would say. I'm not like, Anish Kapoor doing huge sculptures. I think I wouldn't want to. I mean, it's so big and bold, and I'm not a big and bold person. So my ambition, if I had any, very small. But I also think, I don't know. In some ways, I feel like if I have a good idea, a really good idea, in the age of the internet, and if people, you can get it. I could get it done if it's a good idea. I could contact someone who knows someone, because everybody is looking for good stuff. And also, my experience, like the GPS shoes, I've never designed shoes before. So I enter a new world. I've never designed a car before, and I did that car. And so I've got this experience of actually it's an advantage to be an outsider and have a little bit of knowledge, yes, but to be an outsider is that you can, with strong imagination, creativity, enter into new worlds with a fresh perspective. And those people in those worlds are looking for new ideas and new possibilities. So I don't really feel like there's something I couldn't do. I don't have that at the moment. Maybe there is, but I think anything is possible. You got that friend who, yeah, like she created she had an idea for NASA playing an orchestra, and then phoned around and got through to the right people and ended up having a big NASA orchestra. And I think she's probably going to to Mars now. And I think anything's possible in the age of modern. That's the great thing about now. It's all possible.
It is all possible, guys. Somehow we've chatted for a whole hour. Our time's come to an end, and it has just been what you guys were talking about. It has been fun. You have brought something interesting into our world. Thank you so much for that. It's been absolutely brilliant. Thank you. I mean, the books got us most of the way there, but I think I love these conversations for the way they just bring them to life, and they just give us an opportunity to hear what it means to you and how you make it work for you. So guys, thank you so very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. We're going to do it all one more time. We're going to do it next month. It's going to be on Do Build. So this month has all been about how we find the creativity within ourselves to step into the future. Next month, it's all about what does the future need from us and our businesses, and what better way to end. So guys, thank you very much. Thank you everybody for joining us. It's been an absolute joy. Yeah, let's do it again in about a month's time. Bye-bye.
Thanks ever so much, everyone. Thanks for having us.
Bye-bye.
I'm gonna put my kids to bed now. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Gav.